Okay, somebody asked me about the professorship in Sri Lanka, right? Earlier, when you were a professor, it was not very hard and fast. It was flexible. Now, if you want to be a professor, you have to get, there's a marking scheme. You have to get about 120 points, research, then administration, dissemination of knowledge, and certain categories. Right? So if you take most of the people who have applied for professorship, they work on a marking scheme. Now, if you take people like Professor Nandasen and Ratnapala, it was more flexible. And that point, maybe some people were discriminated, right? Now, you don't get people like Professor Nandasen and Ratnapala anymore because the things have changed. You might get a person like Professor Tissakaariyasam or Professor Mandis Rowanadira, but you will never get a person like Professor Nandasen and Ratnapala in the future, because we have changed the way where we select professors, and part of that depends mainly because of Mrs. Margaret Thatcher and the President of America at that time. Okay, so because of these two people, they commodified the education. So that means you have these marking schemes and things become restrictive. So that means you will never get people like Professor Nandasen and Ratnapala, but you might get person like Professor Mandis Rowanadira or Professor Tissakaariyasam, right? That was during Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher. Mr. Ronald Reagan, and they changed the nature of education. They commoditified education. So after that, you don't have universities actually. The nature of system has changed. Earlier education was mainly for knowledge, dissemination of knowledge and creation of knowledge. Now it's different. Now education caters towards neoliberalism, right? But if you take China has a mixed economic system, so their system is very different than in America. Okay, now coming back to America, Israel wants to back Iran. Now, the advisors in America have said they have run short of missiles, they have run short of interceptors used to use when missiles come from the opposition side. There are interceptor missiles and drones and things like that. Why the America spend a lot of money on defense, but that is a scam. It is not. They are not. Mostly their target is to enrich the people. So that is neoliberalism is working all over the place, and it is creating a lot of instability, havoc in the American system. Now, Israel might back Iran for about 2 or 3 days. After that, the war will die down, and Israel has asked America to help them fight to destroy Iran, to make it less, make it like say like Iraq or something like that, so that they become castrated, right? So as far as Iran is concerned, there could be war for about 3 or 4 days. and watch for that, right? So I touch upon two subjects. I අපිට මහාචාර්ය තිස්සකාරිය වසම් වගේ කෙනෙක් හම්බෙන්නේ නැත්තේ කියලා ඒ අපේ තියෙන දැන් තියෙන සිස්ටම් එක වෙනස්. ඒ එතුමා ඉන්න කාලේ තිබ්බ සිස්ටම් එක නෙමෙයි දැන් තියෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා අපිට ගොඩක් වෙලාට මහාචාර්ය මේ අපේ නන්දසේන රත්නපාල වගේ කෙනෙක් හම්බෙන්නේ නැහැ ගොඩක් වෙලාට. ඒ වගේ කෙනෙක් මේ පද්ධතියෙන් බිහි වෙන්නේ නැහැ. හොදේ? Now, person like Tissakariasm, Professor Tissakariasm or Professor Mendy Shrovanadira, you might produce. Not Professor Nandasena Ratnapala. Because we have a different system. You don't have the same university system. Special, the university systems are geared towards making money. It's a part of the neoliberal system. Okay? So you will never get certain kind of professors in the future. You are adapted to a certain system, so that's why you don't get that old school. And who is most responsible for that? Mr. Ronald Reagan and Lady Margaret Thatcher. Now, when it comes to Mr. Tony Blair, he changed the Labour Party in Britain, and he made Labour Party like. He made him to follow the Margaret Thatcher's footsteps. So Margaret Thatcher was very happy about Tony Blair. So we will never get universities which are there 30-40 years. It has changed with time. Okay. Now if you take Professor Karyavasam, Chief Justice. When she was nominated, she was promoted by a professor, and she was leaning towards federalism. It goes beyond federalism, right? And she came from the academia. So there are some people said that she is not fit to be the Chief Justice. Then there is a judgment saying that she is biased towards federalism. For that reason, she should not The verdict was given by Mark Anthony Fernando, and he said she should not judge lawsuits regarding federalism. Then there are about 5 cases. That is what the legal fraternity says. Maganaguma, then country and town planning, and not Maganaguma, Divnagama, country and town planning, and land issues. In all these judgments, there are 5 cases. Then Professor Shirani Bandaranaike said you have to take, if you want to enact these laws, then you have to take permission from the five provinces. That means what she did was she made the parliament redundant. So if Parliament had to take permission from these 5, then only you got the impeachment against Professor Shirani Bandaranaike, right? And when it comes to Professor Shirani Bandaranaike, a certain professor promoted her, and later on that same professor worked against her, right? So when you get professors, you get professors of different caliber, because some professors have no understanding of politics at all. Okay, so that is how the impeachment came about on Professor Shirani Bandaranaike, right? So what is it? Country and town planning, some land issue, Divinaguma. So these are 3 of the cases. එතකොට ශ්‍රේයානි බණ්ඩාරනායක මැතිණිය ඇවිල්ලා සංධියනේ ඊට එහා ගිය එකක් තියෙනවා. ඒකට අපේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට කිව්වා, පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට ආපු නඩු 5කට කිව්වා ඕගොල්ලෝ මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට කිව්වා මේ පළාත් 9 මේක කැමැත්ත ගන්න කියලා. ඉතින් එහෙමනම් පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ වැඩක් නැහැ. ඊට පස්සේ තමයි ඔය ශ්‍රේයානි බණ්ඩාරනායකට විරුද්ධව දෝෂාභියෝග ගෙනා. ඉතින් ඒක එතකොට මිනිස්සු හරියට මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂට වැන්නා. මේ මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ බැලුවේ මේ ත්‍රස්තවාදී අරගලයක් තියලා ඊට පස්සේ ඒක විනාශ කරා. අපේ රටේ යුද්ධයක් තිබෙන්නේ නැහැ. There was no war in Sri Lanka. There was terrorism. Okay, you can't call it a war. Western countries call it war. I wouldn't call it. So then only Mahinda Rajapaksa took the unpleasant action of bringing this impeachment, right? So there was a professor who was involved in both appointment of her and also removal of her. So that people used to criticize Mahinda Rajapaksa. Why they said you are abusing the law, but this is the story. Okay, there's also a website, Helek, and some attorney at law. I think he's the presidential counsel. He says about why she was impeached. Okay, so you might be a professor, you have to have some understanding of politics. Otherwise, you will screw up things, right? පොතේ ගුරාට තැන දෙන්න නරකයි. දුන්නොත් අන්තිමට සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම අනගන්නවා. Right? Now, then we have a person called Professor C.A. Saleh, a professor, associate professor, okay, or somebody, and he has written an article, Invisible Financial Empire. I just went to the internet and I searched about him, and it says part 4, and in that he refers to global financial integrity, right? There's an organization and they use indirect method to estimate the run on our finance by using under-invoicing or invoicing. Not only under-invoicing or invoicing, we have fake invoicing. අපේ රටේ අධි ඉන්වොයිස් කරන අව ඉන්වොයිස් කරන නිසා බොරු පට්ටපල් බොරු ඉන්වොයිස් දිනවා. ඒක so this is something which was brought to light by this government. According to that article by C.A. Saleh, he says that they estimate that we lose about $44 billion for a year by leakage of foreign exchange, by under-invoicing only. There are ways of estimating. You use indirect methods. So this government or any government has to look into this. Now I have always promoted localization economy. Right? Some economists used to promote this globalization with this. What is happening with Suez, with the Strait of Hormuz, and what is happening in Red Sea, globalization has been hit very hard. So that means we have to go back to something what Dr. N.M. did, right? Not necessarily totally go back to that level, but you have to at least look at what he did. එතකොට මේ ස්ථානීය කරන්නට යන්න ඕනේ. ගෝලීය කරන්නට යන්න බෑ. ගෝලීය කරන්නේ ඒක බොහොම ඒක එච්චර අඩමානේ තියෙන කියලා ඒක දැන් මේ හෝමුස් සමුද්‍ර සංජී රතු මූදේ බැලුවා හොඳට තේරෙනවා. ඉතින් මං හැමදාම කිව්වේ ස්ථානීය ආර්ථිකයට යනවා. ග්ලෝබල් දැන් ගෝලීකරණයට ගියාම තමයි ඔය අව ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරන අධි ඉන්වෙස්ට් කරන්නේ බලපෑම් වැඩි වෙන්නේ. So what I have advocated in economics, it has come to certain light, certain things, right? So we talked about the professors in Sri Lanka. We talked about Professor Sriyari Bandaranaike. Then we talked about localization versus globalization, right? Now there is a very important professor, Richard Werner. I mentioned this earlier. So Richard Werner says you don't have to take loans from dollars. You can take loans from You can create, you can do quantitative easing, you can create your own currency, and then you can use that, provided that you don't consume. You can use that for investment, right? But some of these prominent economies say that you can't create money in Sri Lanka. You have to get money from dollar. Okay, now when the dollar is there, China, Russia, and especially Iran are working against the dollar. They want to get rid of the fiat currencies, and I think China is going for a gold-based currency in the future. Right? They are getting everything there. Instead of the Swiss system, I mentioned this earlier. They are using the SIP system. Then you have Embridge. Right? They bypass the dollar system. Right? So now Iran is at the forefront, but China doesn't use war. China has not been involved in war. They have been involved in wars with the Indians and the Vietnamese, but they are not beyond that. They don't. So they don't use war. They use. ඒගොල්ලෝ මේ ඔළුවෙන් ගහන තමයි ගේම් එක දෙන්නේ. යුද්ධ ඇමරිකාවගේ ආයුධ වලින් ගහන්නේ නැහැ. If they Chinese, they use their intellectuals to defeat countries. They hardly go for war. So they are now trying to get rid of dominance or reserve fiat currency in dollar. They don't want to destroy the dollar. They want to have dollar as another currency, and most probably China will go into a gold-based currency, right? So that will come in the future. I mentioned about the crisis in Japan. I said that crisis in Japan will be a headache for the Americans. ජපානයේ තියෙන එක ඒක බෝ වෙනවා. ඒක ඇමරිකාටත් බෝ වෙනවා වගේ තමයි පේන්න තියෙන්නේ. So when you localize the economy, you reduce your ecological footprints. Okay. So I mentioned now about few things about the professorship. Then I mentioned about on under-invoicing, over-invoicing. Then I mentioned about Professor Shirani Bandaranaike, right? Why she was removed, and most people do not know. And some people in the parliament also didn't know why they removed Chief Justice then. Okay? ඒ මිනිස්සු දැන් පාර්ලිමේන්තුව අක්‍රිය කරා කියලා එතුමිය. හරි. දැන් මේකටම මේ පළාත් නමෙන් අවසර ගන්නවා. ඉතින් පාර්ලිමේන්තුව අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. ඉතින් පාර්ලිමේන්තුව 15ක් 20ක් විතර දාලා ඒක අර මේ 50 තරෙන් ඒ කියන්නේ සංධියනේ. ඒ සංධිය සාධ්‍යයට තැහැගිය එකක් වෙතින්. Right? Again, now I want to discuss about certain things. Now I am talking about steady state economics, Anuruddha Avastha. Now we'll talk about the messenger RNA vaccine. Right? Messenger RNA vaccine ne tibbane. A lot of doctors knew the harmful effects. Now they say there were 20,000 miscarriage after this messenger RNA vaccine was used, and some says that you are getting problems, heart, especially male. Then some people say there is an amount of cancer. So only after about 3 or 4 years we'll know. So some of the doctors were against the messenger RNA vaccine, but then they came up public. They were privately. They were giving that knowledge to their known people. So I have come across people who didn't take the messenger RNA vaccine. So even any profession, you get a code of conduct. You don't go beyond that. You have like the mafia, whether it is legal profession or medical profession, they don't come out and expose something. If you expose something, you could lose your job. Sometimes you might get killed. So if you look carefully, it is also like something like the mafia. I wouldn't say that they are like the mafia. So I was promoting this steady state economics. Most of these economics don't accept it. Why? Even I have told Richard Berner how I told is I use YouTube when they have a YouTube video. I put on the comments, but none of these economics accept this. Why? Because if they accept this steady state economics, then they will get thrown out of the system, right? That's like being against the messenger RNA vaccine. Now people are trying to speak about the messenger RNA vaccine. The negative effects of messenger RNA vaccine will only know after about 3-4 years. දැන් මම අනුරත අවස්ථා ආර්ථික විද්‍යාව ගැන කතා කරනවා. ඒක ලංකාවේ කවුරුත් කාටවත් කියවල පිළිගන්නෙත් නැහැ. පිටරටේ ඉන්න ආර්ථික විද්‍යාඥයෙක් පිළිගන්නේ. ඒක මං කියන එක පිළිගත්තොත් ඒගොල්ලන් අර තියෙන ඉකොනොමික් කමියුනිටි එකෙන් අල්ලලා වීසි කරලා දාන එළියට. ඒ අර RNA vaccine. That means I have to do a lone battle, right? So these are same with the messenger. There are some people who didn't take messenger RNA vaccine. They lost their jobs in America, all that. But now the things have changed, especially with Donald Trump. I mean, I criticize Donald Trump, but I say Donald Trump is a friend of the South, but I criticize Donald Trump. But as far as the messenger RNA, okay, now Donald Trump has endorsed, they have given full permission to use Roundup. Earlier there was some opposition with the Roundup chemical pesticide, but now they are given, so there is a difference. But as far as the messenger RNA vaccine, Donald Trump used to be against the messenger because of Donald Trump, certain negative aspects. And then we have this Dr. Fauci. There have been certain negative things coming on Dr. Fauci. So you have to watch what is happening with the messenger RNA. Now I came back to the messenger RNA vaccine because I am the only person in Sri Lanka who speaks about steady state economics. හරි අනුරත අවස්ථා ආර්ථික විද්‍යාව ගැන කතා කරන මං විතරයි. ඒකට හේතුවක් තියෙනවා. හරි steady state economics කවුරු හරි economics ගැන කතා කරොත් ඒ මියාව ආර්ථික community එකෙන් දොට්ට දානවා. හොඳේ. Now in the future medical doctors will be able to speak about the negative effects. If there is negative effect about the messenger RNA vaccine, they will be able to speak. So in the future also, economists will be able to speak about steady state economics. So when it comes to the RNA vaccine, you have to thank Donald Trump with all his faults. Because without him, I don't think this, what they are, these certain things are not verified, but we have to watch out for the next 3 years. And similarly, when I'm fighting for this steady state economics, if you have steady state economics, you have a lot of things in steady state economics. You don't have fractional banking and things like that, and you don't have to take loans, because if you don't have to insist on lot of new projects, right? That means your economic growth is restricted. But when it comes to steady state economics, they don't mention about the per capita, but they talk about the throughput. That is your energy and material consumption. So you can have certain amount of changes in your per capita income, because per capita income is not a measurement in sustainability, it's a measurement in financial sustainability. You can consider it financial sustainability. Then you have a lot of things, 4-day working week, right? No fractional banking, and then you don't take a lot of loans, because you will have very few new projects. So I am the only person who promotes steady state economics, because if you accept steady state economics, they will not accept you as economics. This is very much seen when it comes to RNA vaccine among the medical community, but they advise to their friends and family member not to take it. But we never got the information. Okay, so I think each community has certain code of conduct, and they don't go beyond that, because if you go beyond that, you probably will get thrown out of the community.